This is National Native News. I'm Antonia Gonzalez. Arizona recently became the first state in the U.S. to exempt tribal members from Medicaid work requirements. Ryan Heinches with Arizona Public Radio reports Native American leaders in the state say the rules would have threatened tribal sovereignty.
The Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services announced that Arizona officials can require 120,000 residents who receive benefits to prove they're working or participating in education or community service. Federal health officials, however, also approved the state's request to exempt tribal members from those requirements. Arizona and Navajo Nation officials had pushed for the exemption. President Jonathan Nez says work requirements would harm Navajo families who rely on federal health services. He also calls such work requirements a violation of the federal trust responsibility to provide health care for Native Americans. Nez hopes the Navajo Nation's exemption will provide a model for other tribes. Arizona's Medicaid work requirements will go into effect no sooner than January 1st of next year. For National Native News, I'm Ryan Heinches in Flagstaff.
There are a number of barriers to voting rights for Native Americans. That was the message delivered this week to a Washington State Senate committee. Correspondent Emily Schwing has more.
Over the past year, the Native American Rights Fund, or NARF, hosted field hearings across the country to find out what kinds of things affect voting in Indian country.
I don't think it comes as any surprise to anybody that Native Americans largely live in remote areas.
Attorney Jacqueline DeLeon says isolation is one of many barriers that keep Native Americans from voting. DeLeon is also making recommendations to lawmakers.
Overt overtures to Native populations, welcoming them into the voting process, I think goes a long way. Saying that you are welcome to participate in this system, you're encouraged to vote in this system, I think is something that, Natives don't often hear.
DeLeon presented NARF's findings to the State Government, Tribal Relations, and Elections Committee in Washington's State Senate. I'm Emily Schwing reporting.
Kansas state lawmaker Dennis Heiberger is working to change the designation of Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. He says it's something he's been interested in for a long time.
European discovery of America really was a disaster for Native people. I think it's time to stop honoring the man who caused it and celebrate the people who were here first.
His bill to make the change did not get a hearing last year. Heiberger says it may be difficult again this year.
There was a committee chair didn't seem to want to let us talk about it last year. So if we get enough pressure on him, he might let us actually have a hearing. And I think the tide's shifting. And if we aren't able to get it through the legislature, then we actually have a governor who might be willing to consider an executive proclamation.
The Kansas state representative commented on the bill this week at Haskell Indian Nations University as students and staff gathered together for the spring semester. New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham announced this week more appointments to her cabinet, including leaders to address education. Kara Bobroff, who's Navajo and Lakota, is among that group and will serve as a deputy secretary. She's worked in education for nearly 30 years and is the founder and executive director of the Native American Community Academy. U.S. New Mexico Senator Tom Udall plans to introduce a bill to protect essential tribal programs from being jeopardized by federal government shutdowns. The current partial government shutdown is now in day 35. Tribal leaders from across the country say they're being hit hard and are especially concerned about health care, public safety, and food services. Udall joined tribal leaders on a press call Friday to discuss hardships and the legislation. I'm Antonia Gonzalez.
National Native News is produced at the Annenberg National Native Voice Studios by Quantic Broadcast Corporation. Funding is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, with support from the Public Radio Satellite Service.
Support by Ramona Farms, offering wholesome and delicious foods from our heirloom crops as our contribution to a better diet for the benefit of all people. We are honored to share our centuries-old farming and culinary traditions online at ramonafarms.com. Support by the Herd Museum, hosting the 29th Annual Hoop Dance World Championship, where you can see more than 80 talented native hoop dancers vie for the championship title February 9th and 10th. Details at herd.org.
Native Voice One, the Native American Radio Network.